a globally recognized innovation strategist and best-selling author. Please welcome Shawn Kanungo.
All right, I'm so excited to be here. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's a little wild going after the Clintons. And you should have seen what was happening in the back. Secret Service was here, making sure that everything was good. They're checking everything. Before they were coming on, I heard them call a whole bunch of plays like Cincinnati, 3, yellow, baboon, get in position. Then I saw Secret Service over here, over there, over there, over there. And then before I came on, they were like, Shawn Kanungo? I was like, yeah, that's me. He's like, you're up. Break a leg. No Secret Service anywhere. Sir, you with the orange tie. What's your name? Fernando. Fernando is my new Secret Service today, okay? Anybody get too close? But you know, Claude introduced me as an innovation strategist, and I'm not gonna lie to you, many people don't know what that means. What is an innovation strategist? Recently, I was on a flight from Denver to Orlando, sitting in the back of the plane, economy class in the middle seat, working away for a couple hours. And there was a guy sitting right beside me. He was like, hey man, what kind of work you do? I said, I'm in strategy and innovation. And he was like, what the hell does that mean? I was like, I help organizations create value in new ways. He was like, huh? And I was like, I help companies solve problems. And he was like, you help companies solve problems? You sit in the back of this plane in economy class in the middle seat? He said, you ain't doing your job. I said, what do you do? He said, I'm in importing. And I was like, what does that mean? He said, it means I get the window seat. I said, okay. You know, it's funny, like a number of years ago, actually, I saw a woman, she was on the Steve Harvey show, and her husband was also an innovation strategist. She's been married for this guy for 20 years. She didn't know what this guy did, and this is what Steve Harvey said.
How long you been married?
20 years next year.
You have no idea what he does for a living?
No, I've never met his coworkers. I've never been to his office. He said he works in innovation strategy. I have no idea what that is.
Are you eating good?
Yes.
You all live in a nice house?
Yes, we do.
You have a nice car?
Yes.
Yeah, he's a drug dealer.
I guess that's what it is. But you know, I spent a couple decades in this innovation space, thinking about what innovation is all about. And I thought that there was a blueprint when it comes to innovation. And now I just know that the world is abundant, it's full of algorithms and anomalies, and if you're looking for a blueprint, it doesn't exist. It just requires us to be nimble and flexible and experimental and to challenge old narratives that we've been carrying on for centuries and decades and years. And just to take something from the playbook from the Clintons and the discussion this morning, I actually want you to disagree with me at the end of this presentation. I want you to disagree with me because this wouldn't be a conversation about reimagination, about disruption if you didn't disagree with me. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions of what I'm here to do is to give you some advice or give you some answers. And you know, the beautiful thing about the world today is that we already have all the answers. If you want answers, just ask ChatGPT. But if you want to innovate, if you want to think bigger, if you want to think bolder, you have to ask some big questions. You have to ask some bold questions. So today, that's all I'm going to do, is ask some bold questions. So let's start with the first one and get it out of the way because we've been talking about it a lot over the last couple days. This is a space that I spent a lot of time on throughout my career, which is around AI. And the question I'm here to ask is, what is the most valuable job today in a world of generative AI? What is the most valuable job today? Of course, we've been talking about this for the last couple days. I think it's undeniable the impact of generative AI. You know, Gartner put generative AI at the peak of their hype cycle. I believe that it's still under hype. I believe we have even cracked the surface around the possibilities and opportunities in this particular space. And in fact, everyone is talking about this. Everyone is talking about this. In fact, the CEO of Google, Sundar Pichai, was at the Google Developers Conference a number of months ago, and he actually mentioned AI 24 times. Actually, let me show you.
AI, generative AI, generative AI, generative AI, AI as AI, 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 AI. It uses AI to bring AI, 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 AI.
He said AI 24 times that day, and the stock of Google went up by $55 billion. In fact, I mentioned AI 24 times, and that's how I ended up here. But I believe now we are entering into a new type of economy. I call it the narrator economy. You see, simply by narrating prompts, we can get art and code and ideas and strategies and tactics and analyses at our fingertips. And the most dangerous skill in the world in this narrator economy is a language. Just the ability to speak, to put some sentences together has become the most dangerous skill in the world. And this space is so exponential. Like this week, for example, OpenAI is going to be opening up their GPT store. And actually, a number of weeks ago, I actually created my own GPT. This is live on ChatGPT right now for ChatGPT Plus subscribers. It will be open in the GPT store. It's called Kanungo GPT. And it's your innovation co-pilot. I trained it on all my research, all my writing, my entire book, 500 speeches I put into Kanungo GPT. And it's your innovation co-pilot. I basically built my own robot. And I told my wife, I actually built my own robot. And she's like, does it pick up your towels when you leave on your floor? I was like, not yet. But you see what's happening here is that technology has become just so commoditized that somebody with no coding capabilities is able to spin up an app. Do you remember during the mobile revolution when we all want to create our own app, but then we were like, oh, we gotta hire a designer, we gotta hire a developer, that would cost us tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars to do, and now everybody in this room can create. This is how commoditized the technology is becoming. And my belief is that in 2024, every single cloud product will be including a generative AI feature within their product. Like for example, one of the tools that I use all the time is called Figma. It's an online collaborative tool. They just introduced a generative AI feature known as FigJam, where it will create you a planning work frame or a workflow just by putting in some text. So what I did was, I know I was here today with you, so I want to create an imaginary business conference in the beautiful city of Detroit. And obviously they're sponsoring this. And I went into Figma and I put in, hey, create a workflow for a business conference in the beautiful city of Detroit on November 26, 2024. And this conference is about innovation and Tupperware. And then it started to cook up a timeline for me. And I said, you know what, put this into a Kanban format so that I can help organize it. And it did it right on the spot. This is the superhero assistant that we've been waiting for. And this is just the beginning. And so we know it's not just text and planning frameworks, but it's also images. I believe that this has become the most impressive thing. I've become an AI artist over the last 2 years, creating art in platforms like DALL-E and Midjourney. And I don't think we understand the implications of this. Like, if you look at these pictures, for example, every single one of these pictures is done by an AI. I mean, at this point, it's getting ridiculously good. And I don't think we understand the implications of this. Like, let's say you wanted to hire a marketing agency to do a new brand campaign with a whole bunch of models. You'd have to strategize, you'd have to plan, you'd have to get all your teams together, you'd have to sign all the releases for the models, you'd have to get the fashion designer, you'd have to get the makeup artist, you'd have to get the camera equipment, you'd have to do post-production, and that would have taken you weeks and months to do, and maybe $40,000 to $50,000 to execute. And today, a 10-year-old anywhere around the world can recreate this in seconds. I mean, forget the 10-year-old. You could just pay me the $40,000 to $50,000 and I will do it in seconds. We are starting to reimagine how we look at work. And I believe when it comes to AI, that the end is now the beginning. The end is now the beginning. AI is just not it's just not you put in some prompts and you get an output back, but it could be the starting point where we generate a whole bunch of solutions. Like the way that I would start a new website today, a new analyses, a new run of show, is I would start with 100 analyses. I would start with 100 websites just to start, and then get your final solution at the end. And I believe that there will be two types of leaders in the future. Leaders that leverage generative AI and those that are irrelevant. This is the next paradigm shift. And every time I have this conversation when it comes to generative AI, people ask me the same question, which is, what about my kids? What are my kids going to do in the future? And you know, it's interesting, like we had Mo Gadot yesterday, Zoom in from Singapore, had a really great conversation. He was recently on a podcast, it was called The Diary of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett. And he was asked if he would bring children into this world of AI. And this is what Mo said.
You said something really interesting there. You said if you have kids, if you don't have kids, maybe don't have kids right now.
I would definitely consider thinking about that, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You'd seriously consider not having kids?
Wait a couple of years.
Too late, Mo! I got 3 kids. I got a 7-year-old named Maya, I got a 4-year-old named Dion, and I got a newborn, Aaliyah. I don't know how this happened, by the way. COVID happened, I knocked out, and now I have 3 kids in a minivan. But this is what my wife and I are talking about all the time. What's going to be relevant for them in the future? What skills, what industries will be relevant for them in the future? You know, my parents, they immigrated from India to Canada. They risked everything to come there. And they just wanted my brother and I to have a really safe job. Get a knowledge worker job. Knowledge is power. And I believed it throughout my entire life, up until 14 months ago. And I don't believe it anymore. Not when everybody has an AI co-pilot. To me, knowledge is not power anymore. What's power is people that are hungry, people that can innovate, people that can fight the status quo, people that are bold. To me, this is power. Knowledge is becoming increasingly more commoditized globally. You know, more people have access to generative AI than to clean water or decent sanitation services. More people have access to generative AI through their smartphone than decent toilets. This knowledge is becoming completely commoditized. And to me, the knowledge worker is not the safest job in the world anymore, or the most valuable job in the world. To me, the most valuable job in the world is being a value creator. And as it turns out, the definition of innovation is to create value in new ways. So, the most valuable job in the world today is actually to be an innovator. And this is why it's so important for event professionals to just experiment with this new paradigm shift. These are some of the tools that I use every single day. Perplexity.ai, FigJam, Midjourney for pictures, HeyGen. We need to start experimenting with the space. But you know, it's funny, like, I know every time you have a particular conference, you always have somebody like me come up and say that there's all these radical changes coming about. Generative AI, mobile, cloud, the metaverse, all these radical transformations that will impact the world. But I believe we actually get more value and impact by focusing on the radical unchanges. What are the things that never changed? We've been on this planet for 192,000 years as humans. What's not changed every single year? Here's some of those things. Our love for stories, desire for status, safety and security, intimacy, relationships, delight and surprise. These things have never changed. And here's a dirty secret when it comes to innovation. Innovation is actually 90% focusing on these things. How do we innovate and make these things better? And the 10%, that's focusing on the radical changes. But even though our human behaviors have remained the same, the difficulty level keeps changing. Like, as an example, our baseline expectations keep rising. I believe that it's even more difficult today to please clients and stakeholders. Let me give you a simple example. If you had the privilege of taking an airplane in the 80s or 90s, their in-flight entertainment system was pulling down a screen every 3 rows, and then they would play one movie for everyone. And if you were the unfortunate person of having a seat right underneath the screen, you'd have to watch the movie the entire time like this. And they would play one Kevin Costner movie. And guess what? When it was over, we enjoyed it. And today, they put a screen in front of you. They sometimes give you a tablet. You bring your own phone, and you have everything that anybody has ever created at your fingertips. Oscar-nominated movies at your fingertips. And we're still like, I can't find anything. Our baseline expectations keep rising. it's becoming more difficult to please our clients and stakeholders. How do we fight this? How do we fight this? I believe that there's only one way to do this. I believe we have to bring the F word back. I believe that we have to bring the F word back. And the F word is friction. You see, in a frictionless world, we need more friction. In a frictionless world, we need more friction. Listen, I get it. I'm a digital guy. I love digital. I just talked about generative AI for 10 minutes. I believe that we should make things that are fast and efficient and self-service and consistent, absolutely. But we get disproportionate value in things that require friction, things that are meaningful and magical and memorable and awe-inspiring and surprising. This is where we need to innovate. This is where events live, in the friction. But unfortunately, we've been trained over the last 2 decades to make a frictionless customer experience. Big tech has taught us that. You know, Meta removed the friction of finding our friends. OpenAI is removing this friction of search. Every single big tech company has created a frictionless experience. But at the same time, what they have done is they've sucked out the soul. You are in the business of soul. And my belief is that in a highly digital world, that events become disproportionately more powerful. This is the epicenter for lead generation, for community building, for relationships, for brand building, events. And this is why I believe that event leaders, event organizers, we need a seat at the table. Besides, who do you think is gonna bring the table? Events become so much more important in a digital world. So last question I'm gonna ask you is this. As event leaders, are you willing to disrupt yourself? Are you willing to disrupt yourself, even if you're at the top? You know, a number of months ago, I was at the Coca-Cola headquarters in Atlanta, speaking to their global team. They wanted me to talk about all the disruptors that were coming into the carbonated and non-carbonated drink space. And so I mentioned one of the disruptors that was coming into the Coca-Cola space is this new drink. It's a drink by these 2 YouTubers, Logan Paul and KSI, created this drink called Prime. It's one of the fastest growing drinks of all time. Go to any gas station across America, they'll tell you this is the fastest growing drink. So I put this giant Prime flag in the Coca-Cola building. It was like putting a Kim Kardashian painting at Taylor Swift's house, okay? And after I was done, I was getting an Uber, and there was a Coca-Cola executive standing right beside me. He's been with the organization for the last couple decades, and I said, hey, was it okay that I put the Prime flag during the Coca-Cola meeting? And he said, Shawn, to be honest with you, nobody even blinked. You see, we've had thousands of competitors come into this space over decades trying to take our market share. He's like, have you heard of Hubba Bubba Soda? I said, no, I've never heard of Hubba Bubba Soda. Then I looked it up, actually. 1979, Hubba Bubba Soda. They also had Diet Hubba Bubba Soda for those who want to be healthy. I think this is also when they created Ozempic, 1979. I'm like, we got to work on this thing. You know, I was talking to the Coca-Cola executive, and he said, you know what? Shawn, I want to ask you a question. He said, do you drink Coke? And I was like, did the check clear yet? No, I was like, to be honest with you, my wife loves Coke. I don't drink Coke, and I don't want my kids to drink Coke. But my kids love Dasani and Minute Maid. That's part of the Coca-Cola family. You see what I did there? That's good news, bad news, good news. That's a sandwich. Anyways, he said, Shawn, we already knew that. You see, we're not a beverage company, we're a data company. We already knew that. But it's actually been a blessing and a curse. I'm like, what do you mean? Everybody wants data. That's the new game. Everybody wants data. He said, Shawn, what you didn't mention in your presentation is that our biggest disruptor is not Prime. Our biggest disruptor is not Hubba Bubba Soda. Our biggest disruptor is good leadership. I was like, what do you mean good leadership? He said, see, we run our programs and our campaigns like a well-oiled machine. We are highly optimized. We are highly standardized. We understand these metrics better than anybody. But you see, what's happened over the last number of decades is that we've fallen off a little bit. We used to be the best marketing company in the world, and today we are not. And we're trying to figure out, even at the top, how do we take a step back and say, how do we be remarkable again? How do we be remarkable again? That was incredibly inspiring for me. And the insight that I got was that good leaders optimize the past, but remarkable leaders create the future. Good leaders optimize the past, remarkable leaders create the future. So how do you become remarkable? Well, I believe that you have to go to zero. You know, throughout my career, I've helped organizations go from 0 to 100. How do you scale? How do you grow? How do you get to the next mountaintop? But what I found most valuable is how do you go down the mountain? How do you disrupt yourself? How do you be a rookie again? How do you start from the beginning? You see, the word up there is, are you willing to disrupt your own status? Now, status is an ugly word. It's wrapped up in everything that we do. Our knowledge, our expertise, our seniority, our titles, and our identity at the end of the day. And if you want to disrupt your own status, that's where it starts. You know, one of my favorite lines this morning from the Clintons was when Holly asked President Bill Clinton, what do you think about this whole geopolitics thing? He was like, I don't know. That was the best line that I heard. We need to say more, I don't know. How can we make a mistake? And this is the question that I ask myself every single day to try to disrupt myself. I ask myself this question, which is, how do I try to get myself fired? How do I try to get myself fired just a little bit every single day? Now, don't punch anybody in the face, okay? Otherwise, Fernando, he's gonna come and see and may break it up. No, it's how do I send that moonshot email to a client that I've been waiting to send? How do I have that difficult conversation with a colleague that I've been waiting to have? How do I try to get myself fired every single day? And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because this is the whole point of disruption. Disruption is trying to get yourself fired before someone fires you. And you know, it's funny because a lot of people ask me, they say, Shawn, like, I don't know how to be bold. I don't know how to innovate. I don't know where to start. And you know the hypocrisy of this entire presentation is that I called this Think Boldly. The hypocrisy of this entire conversation is that right above this presentation, we had the words think here. Now, think is important, but it's 1% of the equation. 99% of the equation is acting boldly. It's actually about evidence. It's about receipts. It's deliberately and consciously exposing yourself to challenges. It's deliberately and consciously exposing yourself to suffering. It's waking up every single morning and saying, how do I try to get myself fired just a little bit today? It's waking up and saying, how do I try that new AI tool that he was just talking about? It's waking up every single morning and sending that video pitch to a moonshot client or brand that you've been dying to work with. It's waking up every single morning and having a seat at the table and showcasing to the business how valuable this is. It's waking up every single morning and doing that again and again and again and again. And I know it sounds scary, but this is the only thing I know to be true. It's that the most dangerous person in the room is the person who's most afraid, but bold enough to move forward. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Shawn Kanungo, everybody.